Hi everyone, it's Terry here sharing another process video for Peartree Cutfiles. This time I'm using the 1 in a million cut file from the March Pearscription. I've cut it out of white cardstock and then I've also kept all the insides of the cut file because I want to use them as part of my layout. I've got these two photos in black and white of my little cat Virgil that I want to use, as he's definitely 1 in a million. He's a little monkey. So I want to use this layout to document that about him. So I'm going to keep all these bits to one side and I'm going to start with my background. So I've got this piece of patterned paper from the Vicky Bootin Storyteller collection. I'm just adding a piece of white cardstock onto that frame. I'm just distressing the edges as I often do, and sticking it straight down onto the background. I'm just adding a little embellishment with the staples, with the Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher to each corner. So I've pulled out some Distress Oxides that I'm going to use to add colour to my background. I'm using these colours as I'm tying it in with the embellishment sets from the Storyteller collection. So I've got Speckled Egg, Blueprint Sketch, Peacock Feathers, and I think it's Fossilised Amber. So I'm just using my brushes to add small patches of each colour under where my cut file is going to sit. I find it much easier to just have the cut file on the page to start with, so you can see roughly where you want to put it. Because it's not too wet, the medium, it doesn't soak onto the cut file, so it doesn't damage it. So at first I thought when I'd added this yellow that it was a bit bright, but actually once you put the cut file on top and they all kind of blend in together, it looks fine. I've pulled out lots of different stamp sets to use, so I'm going to do what I like to call tone on tone stamping. So I'm adding the same inks in stamps over the top of where I've added that colour to the background, so it creates more of a subtle effect. So I'm using a variety of different manufacturers' stamps. So I've got some from Pink Fresh Studio, I've got some from All Create, and some from Ali Edwards, and then there might be some others thrown in here and there. I'm not worrying too much about them because they're going to be covered over by the cut file. It's more of a decorative aspect. So just keep going, looking at all the different stamps, picking out things that I want to add here and there. Any spaces that look like they need something extra, I just go in and keep adding. So that's my background nearly finished. As you can see how I'm going to layer that over. I just add some spritzers of water and then rub it off with some kitchen towel just to kind of mute some of the colours a little bit, and just dampen it down. So I've pulled out some Distress stain that I've had in my cupboard for ages. I think this is Stormy Sky, so it's kind of a dark blue colour, and I'm just using it to paint those letters from the cut file, from the inside of that larger cut file, that I'm going to use these as my title. So it's just a case of adding a few layers of this stain, and it goes on really easily. I'm just using the tweezers to hold the letter so that I don't get too much stain all over my hands, although I'm not overly successful in doing that. So off camera I do also paint the stars that I'd left as well, but I do that off camera and I'll leave it all to one side to dry. So I'm just going to add some of that blue stain to the background, just with a few splats. So now I've stuck that white cut file to the background, and I have just added a line of stitching through each word for a bit of interest. So I'm backing my photos on a couple of scrap pieces of patterned paper. One is a dark blue piece that's left over from a previous layout, and then from the inside of that patterned paper that I used for the frame. So I'm just going to tuck that in under some of the stars, and I've popped the top up with foam pads and stuck the bottom of the photo down flush to the page. So I'm just finishing off sticking down those stars now I've tucked it in. I'm going to add all these letters and stars up into the cut file with foam pads. So as you can see, that background that was quite bold to start with starts to kind of fade into the background. Now you've got that cut file there, and then all the inserts in the words and the stars. It all starts to take shape. And now the cut file and the photos become more of the focal point, and the background's just added decoration. So I'm just pulling out some of my ephemera. I've got the thicker like chipboard stickers and also the 6x12 sticker sheet. So I'm just looking at where I can add those. So that chipboard piece says wild hearts fly free, and he's a little monkey, this cat. So I really wanted to capture that. So I'm just adding a few word stickers here and there. And I'm cutting this one up so that I can layer it underneath the cut file, between like where the stars are. So I decide that the middle of the cut file, where it says one inner, so the inner bit, just didn't quite pop off the page. So to start with, I outlined it in a black waterproof pen, and it still wasn't quite right. So I've pulled out an old bottle of Indian ink, which is from a Go-Go Getaway class a few years ago, and I decide that I'm going to have a go at painting in those letters. So I try and be careful using a small paintbrush to paint the inside of the letters to create more of a bold scripty font. And I'm actually really pleased with how that looks in the end. It really pops off the page and ties in with the big black strips I've got going across the page where the words are. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll pop all the links down in the description below. And we love to see your Peartree cut file layouts in our group.